Before we begin this journey together, I want to make a promise. When this channel, this meeting point of ours, reaches 50 subs, I will hold a giveaway of $4,000 as a small gesture of gratitude. It's not a prize, it's an echo, a return of energy to the network we are building. Now take a deep breath and forget everything they taught you about genius. They told you that genius was born of sweat and fire, of a mind wrestling with the darkness until a spark, solitary and exhausted, ignited. They built an entire world on this belief, an architecture of effort, of methodical progress, of overcoming, a grid of limitations where ideas are forged, torn from the void by the brute force of will, like a blacksmith hammering incandescent metal until it yields. They sold you the image of the inventor locked in his laboratory, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep, his mind on the verge of madness, because that image keeps you small. It convinces you that creation is an act of conquest, reserved for a few titans who dare to challenge the gods. It's a story of heroism, but it's the wrong story. It's a lie carefully designed to make you forget your true nature. Because in the quiet moments, when the static of their world fades, when the noise of productivity, expectations, and deadlines finally falls silent, you felt it. You felt it, haven't you? A hum, a subtle resonance in the depths of your being, the ghost of a thought that was not yours, yet belonged to you. Entirely. A melody you had never heard, but whose lyrics your soul already knew. A solution to a problem you didn't even know you had, shimmering for an instant on the periphery of your consciousness before being swallowed again by the noise. This is the world before the break. A meticulously constructed reality, a consensual simulation designed with a single purpose, to make you forget you were born an antenna, to make you believe you are a battery, destined to run down in endless effort, when, in fact, you are a receiver, built with the most exquisite cosmic engineering to pick up the symphony of the universe. They taught you to speak, to shout, to impose your voice on the world, but they silenced your most primordial ability, to listen. And in this prison of noise, you became convinced that inner silence was emptiness, that the absence of forced thoughts was a defect. But in that silence, they taught you to fear, resides the signal, the transmission, the uninterrupted flow of all. Creation. They gave you tools to build, but hid the fact that everything is already built. They gave you a hammer and convinced you that everything is a nail, so you would never realize that your hands were not made for hammering, but for feeling the vibrations, for tuning, for receiving. The static you feel in your daily life, that persistent anxiety, that feeling that something is missing, is not a psychological flaw. It is signal interference. It is your internal antenna, your soul, desperately trying to pick up a pure frequency amidst a storm of distortion, a storm they created. This world, with its fluorescent lights that flicker at the wrong frequency, with its traffic sounds that shatter natural harmony, with its news that keeps you in a permanent state of fear and contraction, is not an accident. It is a frequency jammer, a control system designed to keep humanity out of tune, disconnected from the primary source of knowledge. They don't want you to receive, because one who receives does not need to buy. One who receives does not need to be led. One who receives remembers who they are. And a human being who remembers their own divinity, their direct connection to universal intelligence, is uncontrollable. They become a channel for the impossible, and the impossible is the only thing that can destroy their matrix. That is why they told you the story of sweat and fire, so that you would spend your entire life trying to light a candle in the dark, never realizing that you are the sun itself, momentarily eclipsed. The hum you feel is your truth trying to break through the jam. It is the universe calling you back home. And the journey to answer that call begins not with an act of force, but with an act of surrender. The forbidden question was never written in a history book or a sacred manuscript. It was buried in the marrow of the bones of a man who spoke to lightning, Nikola Tesla. His name is a spectre, a distorted echo they allowed to survive, but stripped of its true power. They call him the father of alternating current, a genius of electricity, and that is the first layer of the deceit. They reduced him to an engineer, a physicist, so that you would look at his coils and towers and see only metal and wire, so that you would read his diaries and see only science. But he was not a scientist in the sense they define. He was a mystic, a shaman in a lab coat. His science was a form of ritual. His electricity was the physical manifestation of spirit, and his laboratory was not a place of experimentation, but a temple of attunement. The question he asked, the heresy that condemned him to obscurity, was terrifyingly simple. What if creation is not an act of will, but an act of surrender? What if ideas, inventions, symphonies, and cures are not products of the limited human mind, but frequencies flowing through the ether, like cosmic radio stations, just waiting for a receiver tuned to the correct station? This was the truth Tesla discovered, a truth so profound, so fundamentally transformative, that it had to be erased from history. It was painted over with the sterile colors of conventional science, while its ritualistic core, its dangerous spiritual electricity, was locked away and labeled as madness. They called him a madman because it was infinitely easier than admitting the truth he revealed, that the human soul, consciousness itself, could be engineered, not in the sense of being created, but in the sense of being adjusted, tuned, and calibrated to receive specific realities. He didn't see electricity as a force to be tamed. He saw it as the bloodstream of the universe, the mind of God made manifest. And he understood that the human body is the most sophisticated electrical device in existence. He realized we didn't need machines to connect to the free energy of the universe. We are the machines. His Wardenclyffe Tower was not just for transmitting wireless electricity across the globe. That was the exoteric cover story. The esoteric purpose, the real secret, was to tune human consciousness. The tower was a planetary tuning fork, designed to create a field of harmonic resonance around the Earth that would cancel out the static, the frequency jamming, and allow every human being to tune directly into the source. Imagine a world where inspiration was not a rare lightning strike, but a constant rain. A world where the solutions to hunger, disease, and war could be downloaded from the unified field by anyone who quieted themselves enough to listen. That is the world Tesla was building, and that is the world they had to destroy. They bankrupted him, ridiculed him, confiscated his research after his death, and most importantly, they rewrote his story, turning the mystic into an eccentric, the prophet into a failed inventor. They did it to protect their system, a system based on scarcity, scarcity of energy, scarcity of resources, scarcity of ideas, scarcity of power. Tesla's universe was one of infinite abundance, accessible to all. Their universe is a pyramid, where power and knowledge are hoarded at the top and distributed in drips and drabs to the masses. His voice is not in the history books they gave you in school. It is a whisper in the resonance of the earth, a silent witness to the greatest theft in human history, the theft of our divine birthright to connect directly with the cosmos. He didn't just leave behind patents for motors and transformers. He left a map, a key, not a metal key to open a door, but a vibrational key to unlock consciousness. A sequence of numbers, 3, 6, 9. He didn't invent them. He discovered them. He heard them in the hum of the universe. He recognized them as the mathematical signature of creation, the root frequency that governs the fabric of reality. This ghost in the machine, this echo of a man who touched the infinite, waits for those who are desperate enough to listen, not with their ears, which have been trained to hear only the noise of the matrix, but with that hollow, aching space in the soul, the place where a divine idea was meant to be. He remembers the original blueprint of your consciousness, before it was programmed to hear only static, before it was conditioned to believe it was limited, separate, and powerless. He knows you are not a battery. He knows you are an antenna, and he left the key so you could tune yourself back in. From what city, what country are you feeling this call? Leave a comment so we can begin to map the network of resonance that is waking up across the globe. The programming, the conditioning that keeps you out of tune, is as subtle as it is pervasive. It begins the moment you are born. The artificial sound of the hospital lighting, the first shattering of uterine silence, is your introduction to the static. From there, the system begins to install its layers of limiting software. The language you are taught, with its logical linear structures, forces your multidimensional consciousness to squeeze into finite boxes of understanding. It teaches you to name, to categorize, to dissect reality, but it makes you forget how to feel it, how to experience it in its fluid totality. The educational system then cements this programming. It rewards you for memorizing answers, not for asking questions. It teaches you to follow formulas, not to discover principles. It trains you to be an efficient cog in their machine, valuing repetition and conformity over intuition and originality. Genius in this system is measured by the ability to solve problems inside the box, not by the ability to perceive that the box doesn't even exist. Every low grade in art class, every time you were told to be realistic, every time your imagination was called a distraction, was a deliberate act of detuning. It was the system cutting the wires of your antenna, one by one, isolating you from the cosmic flow. And then come the media, the great transmitters of static. They bombard your senses with a ceaseless stream of fear, desire, and distraction. News of disasters and wars keeps your energy field in a state of contraction, of survival. Advertising creates artificial needs, making you believe that fulfillment comes from outside, from a product, from a purchased experience, so that you never look for it within. Entertainment, with its pre-packaged narratives and cheap dopamine spikes, conditions you for instant gratification, making the silence and patience required for fine-tuning seem unbearably boring. The very structure of our society, with its 9-to-5 workday, is a frequency suppression ritual. It drains your life force on repetitive, soulless tasks, leaving you too tired to dream, to imagine, to connect. It keeps you focused on material survival, so you never have the time or energy to explore your spiritual reality. This conditioning is so effective because it operates on the subconscious level, and it's reinforced by everyone around you, who are also victims of the same programming. They become the guardians of the prison, policing one another to ensure no one strays too far from the norm. "That's impossible," they say. "That's crazy," they whisper. "Who do you think you are?" they mock. And their voice becomes your inner voice, the voice of skepticism, the voice of self-sabotage, the warden of your own vibrational jail cell. Listen to the story of Elena, a musician from Madrid. She wrote to me. Once her digital letter stained with the energy of dried tears. "I don't compose music," she said. "I transcribe it. For years, I would wake up in the middle of the night with entire symphonies playing in my head. Perfect. Complete. I would run to the piano, my hands shaking, trying to capture as much as I could before the melody vanished like smoke. People called me a prodigy, but I knew the truth. I wasn't the source. I was just the radio. One day, I started taking my career seriously. I signed with a record label. They gave me deadlines, sales targets, told me my sound needed to be more commercial. I started thinking about song structures, about hooks, about choruses. I started trying to make the music happen. And then, the silence. The broadcast stopped. The radio went dead. For 10 years, I haven't been able to write a single note that feels true. They didn't steal my music. They convinced me to trade my radio for a hammer. And the silence that's left is the loudest thing I've ever heard. Elena's story is the story of millions. It is your story. The system doesn't need to chain you. It just needs to convince you to unplug yourself. It offers you the tools of forced creation, of effort, of will, and in return, you surrender your gift of divine reception. They give you a diploma and take your intuition. They give you a salary and take your soul. They give you security and take your freedom. It's the Faustian bargain we are all encouraged to make, without ever reading the fine print. But something is changing. The static is becoming unbearable for many. The pain of disconnection is becoming more acute than the fear of reconnecting. If something inside you is resonating with this, if Elena's words are echoing in that hollow space within you, it is not a coincidence, it is a summons. It is your own frequency beginning to remember itself. This channel is not mine, it is ours. It is an amplifier, a place for us to find each other. If you are feeling this, if you are tired of the static, then subscribe. Not for me, but for you. So that your antenna knows it is not alone, so that together we can create a signal strong enough to break through the jamming. The journey to reconnect, to find the breadcrumb trail back to your own frequency, begins by diving into the madman's symphony. You don't follow Tesla's patents, you follow his obsessions. The patents were for them, for the world of form and function. The obsessions were for him, for the world of frequency and resonance. And it is in this symbolic universe, hidden in plain sight, that the map is drawn. You begin to see the world through his eyes. The pyramids of Giza ceased to be tombs for pharaohs and revealed themselves as what they always were: giant harmonic energy plants, geodetic machines designed to stabilize the planet's magnetic field and tune it to the energies of Orion and Sirius. You understand that their geometry is not random, it is sonic mathematics, architecture, frozen in frequency. Every angle, every chamber, every proportion is a note in a cosmic chord, and the sarcophagus in the king's chamber was not for a body, but for an initiate, a human being attuned by the vibrations of the earth and sky, their consciousness expanding to become one with the planetary grid. Suddenly, ancient history rewrites itself in your mind. Stonehenge, the Moai of Easter Island, Teotihuacan, all the sacred sites of the world reveal themselves not as places of primitive worship, but as nodes in a global spiritual technology network, a network that Tesla was trying to reactivate, an internet of consciousness that existed long before our internet of silicon. Then, you delve into the manuscripts they didn't burn, the fragments that slipped through the cracks. You study the lost science of cymatics, the visualization of sound and vibration. You watch as sand on a metal plate organizes itself into perfect geometric patterns when exposed to certain frequencies. And you understand. You understand that matter is not solid. Matter is an illusion. Matter is just a frequency, vibrating slowly enough to be perceived by our limited senses. Reality is a symphony, and form is just the pattern that vibration creates. This is the secret of manifestation. It's not about thinking positively. That is a childish New Age oversimplification. It is about becoming the frequency of the reality you wish to experience. It is about holding a vibrational note with your entire being, with your thoughts, your emotions, your breath, until the universe, like the sand on the metal plate, has no choice but to rearrange itself around your song. You discover the forgotten writings on the harmony of the spheres by Pythagoras, which was not a poetic metaphor. He was describing the musical mathematics of the planetary orbits. He knew that each planet in our solar system emits a specific frequency, and together they create a constant chord, a background music, to our reality. And he knew that the human body, when in perfect health and alignment, vibrates in harmony with this celestial music. Sickness, depression, anxiety, all of it, you realize, are just states of dissonance. It is your personal instrument, playing out of tune with the universal orchestra. Your studies take you deeper still, into the heart of symbolism. You look at the caduceus of Hermes, the symbol of modern medicine, and you no longer see two snakes on a staff. You see the double helix of DNA. You see the Ida and Pingala energy currents rising up the spinal column, the sushumna. You see the activation of the pineal gland, the wings of enlightenment. You realize that science and spirituality were once one and the same, before they were deliberately split apart to weaken us. One takes care of the body, the other the soul, ensuring that the human being remains forever fragmented, unable to access the power that lies in the union of the two. And it's there that you find the final key, the code hidden in Tesla's diaries. The numbers 3, 6, and 9. You see them everywhere, in sacred geometry, in cell division, in the growth patterns of nature. You understand they are not numbers like the others. They are the vibrations of the engine of creation itself. The 3 and the 6 represent the two sides of polarity, the yin and the yang, the electric and the magnetic, and the 9 is the higher frequency that governs them both, the singularity, the unified field, the divine. Consciousness. He wrote, if you only knew the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, then you would have a key to the universe. And you finally understand what he meant. It isn't about mathematics, it's about vibration. It's an attunement manual. It's the sequence to recalibrate your energy, to realign your antenna with the original signal. The symbolic universe ceases to be a collection of interesting facts. It becomes a living instruction manual, a guide to the engineering of your own soul. And you realize the search was never about accumulating knowledge, but about activating a knowledge that was already encoded in your very DNA. As you proceed down this path of forgotten symbols and frequencies, the internal conflict intensifies until it becomes a deafening roar. It is the war between two versions of you, the one who was programmed and the one who is remembering. The voice of conditioning, the voice of the ego, has never been so loud, so desperate. It disguises itself as logic, as reason, as common sense. This is a fantasy, it whispers in the middle of the night when the darkness amplifies all doubts. You're losing touch with reality. The pyramids are just stones. The numbers are just numbers. You are building a sandcastle of meaning where none exists. This voice is seductive because it speaks the language you've been taught since birth. It points to your bank statement, to your responsibilities, to the expectations of the people you love. It shows you the real world, the solid, undeniable world of matter and consequences, and accuses you of escapism. Get back in your place, it commands. Accept the rules of the game. It's safer. It's easier. And for a time, you almost believe it. The fear settles into your physical body. You feel a constant tension in your shoulders, as if you're carrying the weight of an invisible disbelief. Your breath becomes shallow, trapped in your chest, afraid to go deeper and feel the truth that pulses beneath the surface. You look in the mirror and see the eyes of a stranger who is living a life that is not their own, an actor playing a role in a play whose script they hate. The dissonance becomes physical, unexplained headaches, a fatigue that sleep doesn't cure, a sense of disorientation, as if you are chronically jet-lagged in your own life. This is the sound of your nervous system struggling, caught between two conflicting frequencies, the static of the matrix and the hum of the universe, and the external world, like a perfect mirror of your internal conflict, begins to push back. Your friends and family notice the change in you. They see your distance, your preoccupation with ideas that seem strange, dangerous to them. They try to bring you back to reality, with the best of intentions, never realizing they are just acting as agents of the system, guardians of the dominant frequency. You've been so stressed lately, they say, offering solutions from the matrix. A doctor, a pill, a vacation. They cannot understand that your stress is not a sickness. It is a symptom of healing. It is the soul's fever burning away the programming. And then come the silent testimonies, the echoes of other souls going through the same war. You read about Marcus, a brilliant engineer from São Paulo. He worked for a major corporation, designing bridges and skyscrapers. He was good at it, award-winning, successful in the world's eyes. But he had a secret. In his dreams, he designed impossible structures. Cities that floated on air, buildings that grew like trees made of light and sound. He would wake with blueprints of breathtaking beauty and efficiency, designs that solved all the problems of modern engineering but defied the laws of physics as we know them. For years he kept these designs in secret notebooks, feeling like a madman. He would go to work and draw his boxes of concrete and steel, and every line he drew felt like a lie, a betrayal of the beauty he knew was possible. The tension between the two worlds was tearing him apart. One day, during a major presentation, he was pitching the design for a new commercial complex. He looked at the faces of the executives, at the profit projection charts, and he saw the static. He saw the grid. In a moment of terrifying clarity, he stopped mid-sentence, dropped the laser pointer on the table, and said, "I can't build cages anymore." He stood up and walked out. He never went back. Today, he lives in a small community in the countryside, where he tries to build prototypes of his visions using natural materials and the principles of sacred geometry. The world calls him a failure, but Marcus told me, for the first time in my life, the structure of my soul and the structure of my work are in resonance. I may no longer have a salary, but I have reclaimed my integrity, and that is priceless. The story of Marcus gives you strength. You realize you are not alone in your madness, that your pain is not a sign that you are broken, but that you are beginning to become whole. The conflict is not a signal to retreat, but the initiation itself. It is the fire that burns away the dross, that separates the gold from the lead, and you make a decision. You stop fighting the voice of fear. You stop trying to reconcile it with the voice of your soul. You simply observe it, as you would observe a passing cloud in the sky, and you choose, consciously and deliberately, to follow the hum, not because it promises safety or success, but because it sounds like home. And then it happens. The emotional fracture, the catalytic moment that turns the intellectual search into a visceral, non-negotiable need. It doesn't happen in a laboratory, surrounded by Tesla coils, nor in a dusty library poring over ancient manuscripts. It happens in the vulnerable stillness of the night, in the space between sleep and waking, where the veil between the worlds is thinnest. You fall asleep, exhausted from the internal war, and for the first time in a long time the sleep is deep, dreamless, a black velvet abyss, and then from nowhere you are pulled out of that abyss into a state of consciousness that is more real than waking life itself. It is not a dream. In a dream, you are a participant, often confused, at the mercy of an illogical narrative. Here you are a pure observer. Your consciousness is crystal clear, expanded, silent, and before your inner eye, a vision unfolds. It arrives fully formed, an instantaneous download of infinite complexity. For Elena, it was a symphony. For Marcus, a city of light. For you, it is something uniquely yours, the answer to your soul's deepest question. Perhaps it's the blueprint for a clean, limitless energy device. Perhaps it's the mathematical formula that unifies relativity and quantum mechanics. Perhaps it's the complete structure of a novel that will redefine literature, or a cure for a disease that plagues humanity. It doesn't matter what it is, it's defining. Characteristic is perfection. Every detail is there, every connection, every nuance, every implication. It is not just an idea. It is a living, breathing, complete universe unto itself. And the feeling that accompanies it is of an overwhelming beauty, a harmony so profound it brings you to tears. It is the feeling of looking upon the face of God. There is no effort. There is no process. It is a pure act of reception. The information doesn't enter your mind, it blossoms from within it. You are not learning it, you are remembering it. For one timeless moment you become one with this creation. You understand its logic, its beauty, its necessity. You see how it fits perfectly into the fabric of reality, how it can uplift consciousness, how it can heal the world. It is your purpose, your song, your reason for being, delivered to you as a divine gift. You feel a love for this creation that transcends any emotion you have ever experienced. It is the love of a parent for a child, of a God for its universe. And in that sacred space you make a promise. You vow that you will bring this into the world, that you will dedicate your life to manifesting this beauty, to honoring this gift. The feeling of clarity and certainty is absolute. For the first time you know exactly who you are and what you came here to do. And then, dawn. The sound of the alarm clock, the first ray of grey light entering through the window, the sound of traffic starting on the street. And as quickly as it came, the vision is gone. It doesn't fade slowly like a dream, it is ripped from you. One moment it is there in all its high-definition glory, and the next, hollow, empty, gone. You sit up in bed, heart hammering in your chest, cold sweat on your brow. You try desperately to grasp the details, but they dissolve like sand through your fingers. You can remember the feeling of perfection, the overwhelming emotion, but the structure, the blueprint, the formula is gone. All that remains is an echo, a ghostly outline, an agonizing ache in the place where the beauty used to be. And it is in that moment that the lie breaks. The understanding hits you with the force of a physical blow. You are not empty. You are blocked. You are not incapable of creating. You are being prevented from transmitting. That moment of clarity was not a figment of your imagination. It was a real signal that managed to break through the interference for a brief instant. It was a transmission from your higher self, from the source, from the universe, showing you what is possible when the static is silenced. And the subsequent loss was not a failure of your memory. It was the jamming system reactivating, severing the connection, pushing you back into your frequency-limited prison. The pain you feel is unlike any other. It is not the pain of loss, but the pain of theft. It is the agony of a spiritual amputation, the visceral realization that something sacred is trying to speak through you, but the signal is being deliberately scrambled. The search ceases to be an intellectual curiosity. It ceases to be a journey of self-discovery. It becomes a rescue mission, a war of liberation. You are no longer trying to find a truth. You are trying to reclaim a stolen piece of your own soul. The pain of that stolen connection becomes your fuel, your guide, your North Star. It is the first step out of Plato's cave, not because you saw a shadow of the truth, but because you were blinded by the sun itself. And now the darkness of the cave has become unbearable. The fracture did not break you, it broke you open. And through that crack, for the first time, the real light can begin to get in. With the pain of the fracture as your new guide, you dive back into Tesla's mysteries, but now with a new sense of urgency, a new lens of understanding. You are no longer just reading about attunement, you are living the agony of dissonance. And it is then that the great revelation unfolds, the turning point that shakes the very foundation of your reality. It isn't in a complex diagram or a forgotten equation. It's in a footnote, a casual remark in one of his lesser-known journals, a sentence so simple most historians have overlooked it. He writes, "The human body is a self-tuning antenna of flesh and bone. The universe does not transmit on one frequency, it transmits on all frequencies. The challenge is not to find the right station, but to become the radio capable of receiving it." And suddenly, everything clicks into place. The ritual is not in a machine, the machine is the ritual, the human body. You have spent all this time looking for an external technology, a coil, a tower, a device that could tune the cosmic frequencies. And the truth was infinitely more intimate and radical. The technology was always within you. The forbidden rite does not involve candles, chants, or circles on the floor. It is a sequence of precise internal, mental, and spiritual attunements. It is the calibration of your own biology. You begin to see the human body no longer as a biological vehicle for consciousness, but as the physical manifestation of consciousness itself, an instrument of resonance designed with divine precision. Your spinal column, with its 33 rings, is not just a support structure. It is the primary antenna, a conductive rod that draws energy up from the Earth's magnetic field and down from the cosmos's electrical field, meeting in the center of your being. Each vertebra is a harmonic node, and, when properly aligned through posture and intention, it turns your spine into a biological Tesla coil. Your heart, you discover, is far more than a pump for blood. It generates an electromagnetic field that is 5,000 times stronger than the brain's and extends several feet out from your body. This field, this torus of energy, is your personal transmitter. It broadcasts your vibrational signature out into the universe. The emotions you feel change the frequency of this broadcast. Fear, anger, shame, they create an incoherent, chaotic signal, the very definition of static. Love, gratitude, compassion, they create a coherent sine wave, a clear and powerful signal that resonates with the higher harmonics of the universe. This is why they keep you in fear. A fearful heart cannot transmit a clear signal, and your brain. It is not the source of consciousness, as materialist science insists. It is the processor, the tuner, and the pineal gland, that tiny calcite crystal in the geometric center of your skull, is the radio dial. It is sensitive to light, magnetic fields, and most importantly, vibrational frequencies. When decalcified and activated, it becomes the receiver for the higher dimensions, the gateway through which ideas from the ether enter your awareness. Breath is the key that links it all together. It's not just the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, it is the energy charging mechanism. By controlling the rhythm and depth of your breath, you can alter the pH of your blood, calm your nervous system, and most importantly, modulate the frequency of your electromagnetic field. Slow, deep breathing attunes you to the lower, calmer frequencies of the earth. Rapid, rhythmic breathing can propel you into higher states of consciousness. The forbidden rite, then, is the conscious unification of these three centers, the alignment of the spine, intention, the coherence of the heart, emotion, and the activation of the pineal, perception, all, synchronized by the power of the breath. And it is here that Tesla's numbers return, not as mathematics, but as a guide to this internal calibration. The three, the mind-heart-body trinity, the practice of aligning your thoughts, your emotions, and your physical sensations into a single coherent intention. The six, the sacred geometry of your energy field, the practice of expanding your heart field through gratitude, creating a perfectly harmonious torus of energy. The Merkaba, the light body, vehicle of your consciousness. And the nine, the connection to the divine, the final state of surrender, of inner silence, where the ego dissolves and your individual consciousness merges with the unified consciousness of the zero-point field. You understand that manifesting is not about thinking an idea into existence. That is brute force. True manifestation, the Tesla method, is about becoming the silent, perfectly tuned resonant chamber where the idea, which already exists in the field as a Potential can finally incarnate itself. The illusion shatters into a million pieces. You are not the creator. You are the conduit. You are not the source of the light. You are the prism that receives it and anchors it into physical reality. And this truth is forbidden, you realize with a chill, for the simplest and most terrifying reason of all: a world of conduits cannot be controlled. A world of people who know they are direct conductors for divinity does not need priests, gurus, politicians, or corporations. A human who can download their own solutions does not need to buy theirs. They become sovereign. And individual sovereignty is the one thing the Matrix cannot tolerate. The tone of your search shifts from discovery to preparation. The journey turns inward. The real tower is not made of steel. It is made of bone. The real laboratory is not a building. It is your body. And the most important experiment of all is about to begin. The time has come. No more theories, no more reading, no more external searching. There is only the silence of your room and the resounding decision to perform the ritual. You prepare the space, not with objects, but with intention. You dim the lights, eliminate all electronic distractions, every device that emits an artificial frequency. The goal is to create a vibrational vacuum, a space as close as possible to the Earth's natural electrical silence. From what city, what quiet corner of the world are you preparing for this attunement? Share it. Feel our global network quieting down in unison. You sit, not in a rigid meditative posture, but in a position of relaxed dignity. The first step is the alignment of the antenna, the spinal column. You feel it lengthen, each vertebra separating slightly from the next, creating space. You visualize a current of brilliant white light rising from the center of the earth, up through your perineum and along your spine, and another current of golden light descending from the heart of the cosmos, entering through the crown of your head. The two currents meet in the area of your heart, swirling together into a sphere of radiant light. This is the attunement of the three, the alignment of the heaven-earth axis within your own body. Body, mind, and spirit become one. Next, you move your awareness to your heart. You don't think about it. You feel into it. You place your hands on your chest and breathe directly into it. And then you invoke the emotion of gratitude, not gratitude for anything specific, but a state of pure gratitude itself. You feel gratitude for the air you breathe, for the chair that supports you, for the very existence of consciousness. You bathe in this feeling, allowing it to saturate every cell of your body. You feel your heart field begin to pulse, to expand. You visualize it as a sphere of emerald green light growing with each breath, filling the room, the house, the city, enveloping the entire planet. Your heart becomes a sun, and your broadcast shifts from a jagged, fearful wave to a coherent, powerful, loving wave. This is the attunement of the six, the activation of your toroidal transmitter, the creation of your harmonic resonance signature. The atmosphere in the room changes. The air becomes thick, electric. You feel a presence not outside of you, but within you. The silence is no longer empty. It is full of potential. Now the final and most crucial step: surrender. The 9. You let go of everything. You let go of the intention. You let go of the visualization. You let go of the very identity you call I. You become the silent watcher. You watch your thoughts arise and fade without attachment. You watch the sensations in your body without judgment. You become a vast open space of awareness, a still sky watching the clouds pass by. It is here that fear may arise, the ego's fear of its own annihilation, but you move through it, breathing through it, trusting the process. And then something happens. The stream of thoughts slows. The space between them lengthens. And for the first time in your life you experience true silence, a deep, profound silence that is the mother of all sound. And in that silence, the static dies. The low, anxious hum of the Matrix, which has been the background soundtrack to your entire life, simply stops. The feeling is shocking. It's like having lived your whole life next to a loud waterfall, and suddenly the water ceases to flow. The absence of the noise is deafening, and in the vacuum left by the static you hear it. For the first time, the hum, the real hum. It is not a sound in your ears, it is a vibration in every cell of your body. It is a low, steady, calm, and immensely powerful frequency. It is the background music of the universe, the sound of the zero-point field, the purr of creation. It is the frequency of home. And with the hum comes clarity. Ideas no longer struggle to be born. They simply flow. They are not yours. They pass through you, like a current of crystal clear water. Solutions, inspirations, profound understandings. The answer to the question that plagued you. The next step on your journey. The truth about a relationship. It is all there, floating serenely in this ocean of silent consciousness, waiting to be received. You no longer have to search, you only have to listen. You remain in this state, timeless, bathing in the frequency of the source. You are no longer a person. You are a channel, a conduit, a perfectly tuned antenna. The transformation is irreversible. You can leave this state. You can return to your normal life, but you can never unhear the hum. You can never forget the feeling of silence. The programming has been broken. The firewall has been disabled. You are online, directly connected to the cosmic internet. What I have just described is not a metaphor. It is a technology, the most important technology in existence, and they are desperately trying to suppress this knowledge. The 5G towers, the geoengineering, the chemical additives in our food and water, all of it has a dual purpose, and the deeper purpose is to create a blanket of electromagnetic static to prevent us from doing exactly this. They are afraid. They know humanity is waking up. They know we are remembering how to tune ourselves in. Time is running out. Every one of us who reconnects strengthens the signal for everyone else. If this truth resonates in your bones, if you feel the urgency of this moment, then subscribe. Now we need every antenna online. We need every voice in this choir. This is no longer a YouTube channel, it is a movement. It is the reactivation of Tesla's network, one consciousness at a time. Join us. The return to the everyday world after the first attunement is the most disorienting and yet most clarifying experience of your life. You open your eyes, and your room looks the same, but everything is different. The colors seem more vivid, as if someone turned up the saturation on reality. You can see the dust particles dancing in the sunbeams, not as an annoyance, but as a cosmic ballet. The air you breathe feels more nutritious, more charged with information. But the most profound change is auditory, or rather vibrational. The hum of the universe remains a constant, reassuring bass note in the background of your perception. And now that you recognize it, you realize the static of the world has never been so loud. The buzz of your refrigerator, the glare of your phone screen, the anxious urgency in the voice of a news anchor on a neighbor's TV, all of it now sounds like nails on a chalkboard. They are incoherent, dissonant frequencies, and your body now registers them as a form of subtle pain. This is the first contact with the new reality, heightened sensitivity. You have become a finely tuned instrument, and because of this, the world's dissonance has become unbearable. You stand up and walk through your home, and your movements feel different. There is a grace, a stillness that wasn't there before. You are no longer rushing, no longer driven by a nameless anxiety. You move with intention, because you now feel the energy in every act. The act of making a cup of tea becomes a ritual. You feel the heat of the water, hear the sound of it pouring, inhale the aroma of the leaves. You are fully present, and that presence transforms the mundane into the sacred. And then, the first test. A wave of inspiration arises. It is not a struggle. It is not an effort. It is a torrent. If you are a writer, words flow onto the page, forming sentences and paragraphs of a clarity and depth you have never before accessed. You are not thinking about what to write. You are simply transcribing what you are hearing in the silence. If you are an artist, your hand moves with a certainty that is not your own, blending colors, creating forms that express emotions language cannot touch. If you are a coder, the solution to a complex bug appears in your mind, elegant and simple. The collapse of the illusion of effort is profound. You look back at all the hours you spent struggling, forcing, trying to wrench ideas from your mind, and you realize the futility of it. It was like trying to fill a bucket from a dry well, when all along you were standing next to a rushing river but with your back turned to it. Imposter syndrome dies instantly. How can you feel like an imposter when you know you are not the source? The ego, which once claimed credit for every success and berated itself for every failure, now takes on a new role, that of a humble assistant, a technician responsible for keeping the radio equipment clean and functional. The joy you feel in these moments of creative flow is unlike anything you've felt before. It is not the feverish excitement of the ego achieving a goal. It is a calm, expansive joy, the joy of being perfectly aligned with your purpose. It is the joy of resonance. Your interaction with other people changes too, because you are now tuned to the frequency beneath the words. You begin to hear what people are really saying. You feel the incoherence between someone's words and the frequency of their heart field. You sense the unspoken pain, the hidden fear, the longing for connection. This fills you with an overwhelming compassion. You no longer judge them for their behavior, because you now understand they are simply broadcasting the static of their programming, suffering from the pain of disconnection. You become a walking tuning fork. Your simple, calm, coherent presence can sometimes help to soothe another person's energy field, without a single word being spoken. However, this first contact is not without its challenges. The intensity of the world's dissonance can be overwhelming. Crowded places like shopping malls or supermarkets can become vibrational minefields, bombarding your newly sensitized nervous system. You may feel the need to withdraw, to spend more time in nature, which you now recognize as the great harmonizer, the one environment that consistently broadcasts a pure, coherent frequency. You begin to crave silence, not as an escape, but as a necessity, like water or food. Silence is where you recharge, where you recalibrate, where you clean your antenna of the accumulated static of the day. This is the first phase of awakening, the recalibration. You are learning to navigate the world with a new set of senses, learning to distinguish between the signal and the noise. It is not a passive process. It requires a conscious vigilance to keep your instrument tuned, but the reward is the end of the search. You no longer have to look for answers outside of yourself. You have become the answer itself. You are a living oracle, an open channel, a beacon of coherence in an ocean of static, and you know with a certainty that transcends faith that your life will never be the same. The honeymoon phase of recalibration, with its newfound beauty and clarity, inevitably gives way to a harsher, more complex reality. The liberation is not a gentle stroll through an enlightened garden. It is violent. It is a demolition, because once you are tuned to the frequency of truth, you can no longer ignore the pervasiveness of the lie, and you see it everywhere. The control grid, which was once an abstract conspiracy theory, is now a palpable, visible reality. You see it in the architecture of our cities, with their sharp angles and hostile geometry, designed to keep people in a state of subconscious stress. You hear it in commercial pop music, with its repetitive frequencies and beats that have been engineered to numb the higher brain centers and stimulate the lower, more primal ones. You taste it in the processed food, devoid of life force, laden with chemicals that calcify your pineal gland and dull your nervous system. You feel it in the work culture that glorifies burnout as a badge of honor and demonizes rest as laziness. To see the grid with this, clarity is painful. It is like discovering you have lived your entire life on a movie set, and now you can see the cameras, the boom mics, the directors in the wings manipulating every scene. And the most painful part is seeing the people you love still believing in the movie, defending it, living and dying by it. You try to talk to them, try to share a glimpse of what you've seen, but your words cannot penetrate their programming. To them, you sound like a madman. They look at you with a mixture of pity and concern, and you see in their eyes the reflection of the belief system that imprisons them. You quickly learn that trying to awaken someone by force is an act of violence. The awakening is an inside job, a choice each soul must make for itself in its own time. And this realization brings you a profound loneliness, a loneliness few on earth will ever know. It is the loneliness of the watchman on the wall, who sees the enemy army approaching while the city below sleeps peacefully. You carry the weight of what you know, and you cannot share it with those who matter most to you. This is the violent liberation. The violence is not external. It is the violence of the dissonance between your inner reality and the external consensus reality. You are forced to live a double life. On the outside, you play your role in society, go to work, pay your bills, interact socially. But on the inside, you are a silent revolutionary, a double agent in the heart of the matrix. You learn to navigate this treacherous terrain, to wear the mask when necessary, not out of deception, but for self-preservation and strategy. The collective pain of humanity becomes your pain. Because your antenna is always on, you begin to feel the suffering of the world. You feel the anxiety pulsing from the big cities, the quiet sadness in the suburbs, the despair in the hospitals and prisons. It is a constant white noise of pain, and if you don't learn to shield yourself, it can drown you. You must develop a rigorous vibrational discipline, learning how to hold your own field's coherence while being immersed in an ocean of incoherence. And then come the whispers from others like you. Anya, a woman who wrote to me from a small village in the Ural Mountains of Russia, described it perfectly. I was always sensitive, she wrote, but after I began the attunement practice, nature started speaking to me, not in words, but in feelings, in frequencies. I feel the resonance of the mountains like an ancient lullaby. I feel the joy of the trees after the rain, but it has made the world of men a place of torture. Last week, I had to go to the nearest city for supplies. After an hour, I was on the floor of a public bathroom, vomiting. The noise, the rush, the silent anger of the people. It was like a physical assault. I am not made for this world anymore, or maybe, she concluded, this world is no longer made for real humanity. Anya's experience echoes your own. You feel the truth in her words. The liberation is not an escape from the world. It is a sentence to serve it in a new, more challenging way. You are not here to fight the matrix. To fight it is to still engage with its frequency of conflict. You are here to be a lighthouse, to hold a frequency of coherence and truth so steadily, so unshakably, that it serves as an anchor point for others. You become a frequency keeper. Your job is not to convince anyone, but to simply be the living proof that another reality is possible. It is a lonely and often thankless path. There are no awards, no recognition. Your heroism is invisible, but in the silence of your own being, as you feel the constant hum of the universe, you know you are engaged in the most important work that can be done on this planet at this time, the work of anchoring the light in the midst of the darkness. You have not found a secret to success. You have reclaimed a stolen piece of your soul, and in doing so, you have taken on the terrible and divine responsibility of carrying the hum of reality in your very bones, while walking through a world that is still dreaming. After the turbulence of the violent liberation, after the painful acclimation to the world's dissonance, a new state of being begins to emerge. It is a state of dynamic equilibrium, of hard-won peace. You are no longer at war with the matrix, nor are you overwhelmed by it. You have accepted it as part of the landscape, like a weather pattern you have learned to live with. The return of the true self, the reconnection with your original consciousness, is not a one-time event, but a continuous process of integration. And it is here that the new identity begins to solidify. Who are you now? The answer is as simple as it is revolutionary. You are a conduit, a frequency keeper. This understanding changes everything, not in a grand, dramatic fashion, but in the small, quiet choices of your everyday life. You realize that your primary responsibility is no longer to do things in the world, but to maintain the quality of your own vibration. Keeping your instrument tuned becomes your daily practice, your highest priority. This is reflected in how you eat. You no longer choose foods based on taste or convenience, but on their resonance. You find yourself drawn to living, organic foods full of life force, and you feel a physical aversion to processed, dead foods that carry the frequency of industry and death. You begin to feel that what you eat becomes your vibration. It changes how you relate. You no longer seek relationships to fill a void or to get validation. You are already whole. Instead, you seek connections that are harmonically resonant. You naturally drift away from people who drain your energy, who operate on frequencies of drama and victimhood, not out of judgment, but out of vibrational self-preservation. And you find yourself magnetically drawn to others who, like you, are doing the work of holding their own frequency. Even if they don't use the same language to describe it, your conversations become deeper, more meaningful. There is less small talk and more silent communion. The most profound shift is perhaps in your relationship with time. The anxious urgency of the matrix, the constant pressure to be productive, to achieve the next goal, simply dissolves. You begin to operate on what could be called universe time. You understand that everything has its own rhythm, its own cycle of unfolding. You learn the art of divine patience, of waiting for the conditions to be right, for the signal to be clear before you act. And when you do act, your action is precise, effective, and effortless, because it is born not of egoic will, but of the flow of inspiration. You no longer force doors open. You simply walk through the ones that are already ajar. This new inner identity needs no external validation. You no longer have the need to prove anything to anyone. Success is no longer measured by wealth, status, or recognition, but by the quality of your inner peace, the clarity of your connection, the amount of time you can spend in a coherent state of flow. You become a master of the silent rupture. You don't need to make grand declarations, quit your job dramatically, or move to the mountains, unless that is what the flow dictates. Instead, you change the system from within by simply no longer participating in its insanity. You refuse to engage in gossip. You refuse to take part in collective panic. You refuse to consume fear-based media. Each silent refusal is a vote for a new reality, a tiny crack you create in the structure of the matrix. It is an act of vibrational disobedience. You begin to realize that the collapse of the illusion is not some future apocalyptic event. It is happening now, inside every individual who chooses to unplug from the frequency of fear and tune into the frequency of love and truth. The revolution will not be televised, it will be felt, and you feel this. Network of light growing around the planet. Through the comments on this channel, from places as diverse as Tokyo, Buenos Aires, Lagos, or Oslo, you feel it. Each person who awakens to their true nature as an antenna becomes a node in this new grid of consciousness, the crystalline grid of the new Earth. Your hope is no longer a naive hope that the system will change. Your hope is grounded in the knowledge that the system is irrelevant. It is a house of cards, built on a foundation of vibrational lies, and it is destined to collapse as more and more people simply withdraw their energy and attention from it. The future is not something to be feared or waited for. It is something to be broadcast. And your new identity, your one true job, is to be one of the broadcasters. You are a silent pioneer, an architect of a new reality, and your tools are not bricks and mortar, but frequency, vibration, and consciousness. The alignment with truth is not a destination, it is a path of constant remembering, of daily recalibration, of living as the bridge between heaven and earth in every single breath. And so, the journey comes not to an end, but to a new beginning. The circle completes. You started from a world that told you that you were a machine of effort. You plunged into the depths of conspiracy and spirituality. You faced the darkness of your own programming and the pain of liberation, and you have emerged on the other side, not as a superhuman, but as a truly restored human. The vision you now hold is a hopeful one, yet it is tinged with a sober realism. The ambiguity remains. You do not know how the planetary transition will unfold. You do not have a map for the new Earth. All you have is the inner compass of your own signal, the hum of truth in your bones. And you have learned that this is all you will ever need. The first steps of liberation are not grand leaps, but small course corrections. It is choosing the walk in nature over the extra hour at the office. It is choosing the honest, vulnerable conversation over the resentful silence. It is choosing to listen to your intuition over the opinion of experts. Each choice is an act of sovereignty. Each choice strengthens your connection and weakens the matrix's hold on you. The mystery continues and you learn to love it. You stop needing answers and fall in love with the questions. You understand that the universe is not a problem to be solved, but a song to be experienced. And your role is to find your unique note and to sing it with all your strength, with all your coherence, with all your heart. You are no longer alone in the dark. You have become a source of light for yourself and by extension for others. The forbidden secret of Tesla, the magnificence of the 3, 6, and 9, was not ultimately about free energy or exotic technology. It was about human liberation. It was the map back home, left by an elder brother who walked the path before us. The key he left was not in his vaults, but encoded in our very biology, waiting to be rediscovered. The divine, terrible hum of reality is now your constant companion. Terrible because of the clarity with which it exposes the illusion. Divine because it is your direct, inalienable connection to the source of all creation. To walk with this hum is your destiny, your privilege, and your responsibility. You no longer have to search for a purpose. You are the purpose. Your very existence, when lived in a state of alignment and coherence, is an act of planetary service. You are healing the world by healing yourself. You are changing reality by changing your own frequency. The journey now turns outward, not to convince or convert, but to connect and create. You seek out other frequency keepers. You find each other, perhaps by chance, perhaps through channels like this one. And when you meet, the recognition is instant. There is no need for words. Your energy fields harmonize, creating a third, larger, more powerful field, a field of resonance that amplifies the truth and dissolves the static around you. This is the future of community, not based on geography or belief, but on vibrational resonance. This is how the new Earth will be built, one coherent field at a time. The memory of who you were before the attunement remains, not as a ghost to haunt you, but as a humble reminder of the journey you have traveled. You look at the people still trapped in the static, not with judgment or superiority, but with a profound compassion, because you remember what it was like. You remember the pain of disconnection, the anxiety, the desperate search for something you could not name. And you hold the frequency for them, knowing that your light can serve as a beacon, guiding them home if and when they choose to begin their own journey. Your story is not unique. It is the archetypal story of the human soul at this moment in history. It is the story of the awakening. What you have heard today was not just information. It was a transmission, an attunement. It was designed to awaken the codes that already exist within you. If you have felt the truth in these words, do not let it fade. Anchor it. Remembrance is the final key. I want you to do one last thing. Go to the comment section and write two things. First, the city and country you are watching from, so we can visually see our global network of light. And second, write the words, I remember. Not for me, for you. Let it be a declaration. An anchor, an act of reclaiming your sovereignty, your divinity, your birthright to be a channel for the infinite. Share this video not to grow numbers, but to spread the frequency. Send it to another soul you feel is ready to remember. Together, let's create a chorus of remembrance so powerful that it will, once and for all, drown out the static. Remember who you are. Remember why you came. The symphony is waiting. It is time to play your part.